Hello, everyone, and welcome to the front room. I am your host, Nathan Rigoni, and in today's episode, we will be talking to Ben Kellum, who is a dentist in the Huntsville area, and we will be talking about how AI is being applied to his industry. I will go ahead and apologize for the audio. We recorded in a room that I thought would be pretty great for an interview for a podcast, but it actually turns out that there's an immense amount of reverb that was happening in that room. And I actually had to use an AI application to remove it, which apparently wasn't even possible before artificial intelligence, which is kind of cool. But without delaying any further, let's dive into it. I am here with Ben Kellum, and I will allow you to tell your own background.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm a dentist here in Huntsville. I work at Transcendental Implants. So we are a Christian-based clinic, primarily focused on what we consider kind of bigger dentistry. So if you need a filling, I'm the worst person in the world to get a filling from, but kind of pulling teeth, dental implants, replacing the teeth is kind of my primary focus. And we've had our clinic for about 4 or 5 years here, and then I worked in Birmingham for 4 or 5 years before that as a dentist as well. So that's kind of a short version of kind of my backstory. So yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome. Sounds like you do sort of the you're like an extreme dentist.
Extreme dentist. I think, it's funny. So when I went to dental school, I didn't honestly know a lot about what dentists did, which is silly to say. Like, I feel embarrassed to say that out loud. But my wife Rachel dropped me off at school, literally at dental school the first day, like a kindergartner, and I had my lunchbox, and yeah, the whole thing. And I was, it's like I was telling her, I was meeting new people and whatever, and she said, "Well, at least you know how many teeth are." And I said, "I really don't know how many teeth people have." I was like, my finger will talk about it. It's like this is years and years of school. Surely we'll cover teeth at some point. So, but I went into dentistry and didn't really understand what all the dentistry could really do. And so I thought, do fillings or whatever. And then I got into it. And then there was a surgery thing and dentistry. The digital side was exploding at the same time that I was in school. And that was just kind of starting to scratch the surface. And that was really revolutionizing a lot of how dentistry is being done. And so, like, the way I'm doing dentistry now, I didn't know existed. It probably didn't exist at the time, but it's like completely different than I thought a dentist did. So that's been really interesting because, like, you'd asked me 15 years ago what my scope and scale of what I'd be doing. This is unrecognizable to me.
Completely different.
So, I mean, yeah, completely. I didn't even know it was a thing. So that's been kind of bigger scale stuff. So if people need smaller scale stuff, we don't see a lot of that. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's actually so one of the things I like doing about the interviews, you asked a bit earlier, is that I like to interview people that I don't know very much about, like their field.
Yeah.
And most of that is because, like, for one, it gives me an opportunity to learn something, and
Yeah.
two, like, it gives you guys a lot of opportunities to answer questions that I have.
Yeah, sure.
I'll have a lot of them. So I think I'll probably open with one of the questions that I will make a staple on the podcast, which is, and my previous interviewee actually gave me this question. So if there was one thing that you do at your job, right, that you could stop doing today because AI could automate it for you, what would that thing be?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that is happening right now in the industry that AI is trying to start working on, and the companies are starting to apply to. So one that pops straight to my head is for a lot of our patients, the short version is, we're taking a lot of their teeth out, and then we're replacing their teeth. And so they're coming in with their existing teeth. A lot of times they're not in the right place and not in the right structure. So a lot of the companies now are trying to get where the software will auto-generate the teeth based on the individual, where they need to be, where the structure is, where the size of the teeth. This is a very labor-intensive process for us right now because it's manual. And so some individuals having to go in and they're having to look at photos and pictures of the patient and guess based on the patient structure. And so it's a very kind of crafted, but it can be a very automated thing. Most patients work within averages of like if your nose is approximately this size and your jaw is approximately this size and your eyes are approximately in this position, then the tooth position can be here, here, here. So
Gotcha.
so it's can be a very automated process. But right now it's extremely so. I'd say right now you're spending an individual spending an hour on a patient to do a process that could be probably generated in a minute, So,
Wow.
Also within that, I mean, the digital technology stuff, I mean, you realistically, if you were, what I see it headed towards, like, for example, a patient a lot of times will take a photo or take a 3D facial scan on a patient. And you can, right now, we're manually aligning that to a scan of their mouth and like so the way I think about it is there's lots of sets of data. So we have like a 3D x-ray, and then we also have a 3D facial scan, and we also have a 3D scan of the teeth themselves. And we also have surgical data that comes in. And so there's all these layers of data that right now someone is manually putting and combining and mixing together. It's labor intensive. So a lot of it is just stuff that has to be done correctly. So we want that, like, and the software's not quite there yet enough to generate that accuracy yet, but it's happening. I mean, that's where the software. So like, ideally, where I'd love to see in the next couple of years is we get all this information on a patient, all these like scans and data, and we put it in the computer, and 2 minutes later, they have all the data aligned, all of it. They've already generated what the teeth are supposed to be like, and they already have a simulation the patient can look at of a smile. Right now, that's doable, but it's all very labor intensive. So it would take someone 2 hours to do that. Whereas I want a patient, like, so imagine you came in and you need a bunch of dental work, and within 2 minutes, I showed a picture of you that looks like completely different. A new smile, automated. Yeah, you can look at this. This is an actual representation of you based on your stuff.
Yeah.
Automatically happened. And then when I did surgery, I don't have to digitally use CAD to design the position of the teeth. I can already have it all positioned.
Right.
I can already there's a lot of data sets that just have to be pulled in and aligned, and then a lot of kind of interpretive aesthetic stuff that has to be done. And so a lot of it that could be automated. So that's where a lot of companies are focusing, because there's so much of a desire to do that. It's very labor intensive and hard to train people on.
Gotcha.
So to get someone up to speed to recognize a lot of that stuff is difficult, but to get a software trained in the averages and just analyzing points and stuff would not be probably as challenging. Now there'd be some, not everybody's average. So that would be the tricky part, is probably feeding in a lot of different abnormal people.
Cases.
People that don't fit the mold so that it could catch those. But for 90% of patients, you probably follow averages and do extremely well. So that'd be cool.
I was going to ask too, because that sounds amazing. That sounds like it'd be great. Is there like an opportunity in that workflow for maybe AI to give like a first pass, right? To say, hey, here's pretty close, and then you kind of move things around, or is that not really how it works?
No, totally. I mean, so the other thing that would be really interesting would be for it to generate, hey, this patient wants to, for example, one common thing is they want to show more teeth, or they feel like these teeth are crooked. And so to say, patient feels like their existing teeth are this, generate a set of teeth that correct this angulation, and then so you can kind of, and then, hey, I see your first set that looks like their canine teeth are too long, pull up. Like, so you can kind of do a conversational back and forth. Because a lot of what I do, which I don't want to do, but it's labor intensive, is having those conversations with the patients of going, what would be really cool is if I could sit with the patient, and while they're describing me the changes they want, they could see on the screen hey, okay, the way you look right now, you feel like you're not seeing enough of your teeth. Okay, great, type. Okay, the screen shows, okay, what if you saw something like this? Oh, yeah. So, I think at first pass is where it will start. I think that it will start with, here's a generation, 90% of the time it'll be pretty good, and then you'll have to tweak a little bit.
Right.
And it'll get where it'll nail it almost always. But first pass would be super helpful, right? Because there's a lot of just there's 30 minutes probably of time on every single patient that's doing the exact same thing just to get 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
Really, what you want to do is you want to have the artistic, interpretive eyes on it for the last 10%. You don't
Right.
really want the manpower of the, okay, here's 20 minutes lining the data, here's
Yeah.
30 minutes getting it most of the way there, and then really the last 10 minutes is the part we want to pay attention to, but you still have to do all that legwork. So if it could get you, hey, I'm going to put that all in there, and then I'm going to go up for a minute and grab coffee, and by the time I get back, I'm 90% of the way done. That would be a huge accomplishment, especially in scale. I'm an individual dentist, but like a dental laboratory, which is building these for you doing this 100 times a day.
Yeah.
That's what makes so much interest in it. They could just really get through
grinding.
Well, yeah, and they're already doing this on individual teeth, and it's much simpler for that because the variability is much lower. It's just a little thing. You got two teeth next door. You just kind of got to do certain things, but so you can literally now, if a dentist gets a tooth ready for like a cap or crown, you send it to a lab, they make a tooth, it generates a CAD version of the tooth that's right, and then the other interesting thing that I think a lot of people are trying to do is, and I may use, so this is where I don't know a lot, I may use the term wrong as far as like, learning versus AI versus robotic, so I kind of rope everything in.
So a lot of this podcast, I even started a second series, is trying to help people who are not in that industry also kind of analogize and be able to sympathize with some of the words that we use and some of the jargon. Because I feel like a lot of the jargon I use is kind of gatekeeping. So it's totally fine. It's perfect that you're not.
I know that. So there is an element. So if you boil down most of dentistry, it would be data acquisition, and then CAD generation, and then manufacturing.
Gotcha.
And then delivery or giving the patient what you make, right?
Yep.
And so data acquisition right now is heavily like I'm an individual going and doing that. And for now, that's probably going to stay that way because you have to go in someone's physical mouth. There's not a lot of value right now. Or like industry's not going for a ton of money. There's just not a lot of value there. Data, like the CAD design and generation of an object is a huge area of automation.
Gotcha.
The manufacturing, like I'd love if it generated a tooth, it sent it to my mill or my 3D printer and automatically started printing. And the next time I came over there, I had a tooth that was ready to put in. Right now I have paid staff that are spending multiple hours on multiple programs of, doing there's a lot of artistry to it, but there's a lot that could be, so like generates a CAD object, then takes that into automatically sends it over to the waiting mill or 3D printer and it starts going and then the next it's there. So I think that's within the CAD and then the CAM or the manufacturing component that's where I think a lot of automation would be really cool. Like I said, the language as far as what is AI versus what is just automation or what, but that would be where I'd like to see things head. So,
well, that's a really cool place. You had me thinking for a moment. There's a technology that exists that is pretty cutting edge today, where we take stuff and we use video when we video something, and the intent of that video is for us to then take that video and we feed it through an artificial intelligence model. And what it does is it generates a thing called a USD, which is a universal scene description. And we can then import that because all of these game engines and things like that use that same format. We can import it into stuff like, do you know what Unreal Engine is? It's it's like one of the video game design engines. And so we can basically take a video and create like a 3D model in those engines using a video. But I wonder how much of a stretch it would be to take that and be able to import it as like a STL file or something into like a CAD software.
Yeah, so we're already seeing people. I just recently saw this last couple of weeks. I saw a company that released live video where patients will continue to have that simulation generated, so they can see themselves talking and having a conversation.
That's very cool.
Seeing the smile, new smile, but they can see it active. Like in the past, it was a digital simulation on a photo, maybe. And so, but they're like, I saw like a patient that they walked in the room, they started talking, and that smile generation was overlaid while they're having a conversation. So they can kind of really actually see what it would look like. So stuff like, so part of the interest in dentistry is in what they call patient excitement, right? Which is not the thing I'm most interested in, but which is like I want to sell a patient doing a case, and so part of what you have to do that is get a patient to see and get excited about spending money. So hey, that looks awesome. I want to drive that car. I want to have those things. And so that's part of the focus, and then the part that's really interesting to me is I'm really interested in how can I democratize or how can I lower barrier of entry for high level treatment.
Yeah.
Right? So so technology has been the way for me to do that. So treatment that typically is outlandishly expensive is now more accessible because before I used to have to do a lot of the stuff and send it to a place and they were specialized and they cost a lot of money. And now my manufacturing's in-house, my generation's in-house. And so the more that I don't have to the more I can reduce overhead on generating.
Sort of vertically integrate.
Yeah, totally. So this used to be 7 different people that had to touch this to get it to happen, and every person charged, which is reasonable, right? I mean, so they had a skill set that was very specific that you had to send, and now it's like I have everybody in my building. And that has made my cost significantly lower. I mean, scale of like you to get a set of just a unit of teeth, we'll just say that cost $5,000 to send it somewhere to get, and materials now to generate that is $100 in scale difference. Now I have to pay someone to generate it, but it's still probably a fifth of the cost to make the same item and so that's the part that's interesting to me with a lot of this technology and AI is that something that used to be, it was very artistic. There was one guy that could do it that spent 20 years, which is great. I'm not taking away from that, but that just made it so prohibitively difficult to generate something for someone. And so I joke about I don't want everyone that comes to get teeth that would drive a BMW to my clinic. I take a pull record and get really nice, or ride their bicycle. We had some people drive from under the, bike from under the bridge to get some teeth, and that's what I want. And so technology has been a little small version of the backstory was I was working at this clinic, and I'm a little techie, but I'm not like overtly that techie. And the way teeth used to be made was so physical. It was so like if I was making a tooth for you, your front tooth, or back tooth, we'll say, I would have to get your tooth, and I'd have to prepare the tooth to get a cap on it, and then I'd have to pour physical stone into a mold that I did with goo on your teeth to generate a stone model, and then I would have to take wax and physically drip wax all the way around to generate the tooth. Then I'd have to take that wax off, and I'd have to pour stone around that wax, and then I'd melt the wax out, and I'd have to melt gold into a spinning crucible that would launch gold into the stone. That was like it was like, and I hated it. It was you had to be so artistic. I'm like not artistic. Like that's not so like in middle school I sat next to a graphic designer, and so they were so artistic, and so they we'd be working on a project, and they'd come and I'd hear them be like, Bill, your stuff looks so great. This is amazing. And then they'd come over to me and be like, well, so I hated the idea of making teeth was so frustrating to me. Then I get out of practice, and I'm practicing in one of these clinics has some of this technology, this CAD and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is not even the same thing. Now it's computer generated. It's not as a lot of the difficulty of this has been reduced, and we're still getting a real nice product. And so that was revolutionary to me. Before it'd be like, I'm not going to do that. That's like I can't. That's not a skill set I'm great at, and it's so labor intensive. And now it's like, yeah, we can do this. This thing's much more doable. So that's been really fun. So
very cool. So democratization is like one of the things that AI is really good at. It's also one of the things that I think people fear the most usually. Yeah. But it's cool to hear you say that and kind of talk about that, because I think if it, as it moves into the dentistry realm, that's going to be one of the things that happens to it, because everywhere it goes, it democratizes things.
Totally.
So the cost will come down. But I never considered, like, I guess the social impact that that's going to have. That there's going to be a lot of people who are self-conscious about their teeth right now, or possibly even have like eating disabilities. That it will completely revolutionize their lives.
Yeah.
It's gonna make a huge difference for them.
Yeah, so the population I generally deal with is, so let's say a majority of people, especially if you have middle class, upper middle class, you go in, you need a tooth worked on, you have the money to pay for a filling, right? And
Yeah.
so you get a filling, and then 5 years later you need another filling maybe. And so over the span of 50 years, your teeth have maybe 15 fillings in them, but you have your teeth, right?
Yes.
Okay, same person, good, but no money. Goes in, they need a filling. So how much does the filling cost? No, it's about $500 or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have insurance, I can't, whatever.
Yeah.
Then they go, okay, how much is getting the tooth out? Well, it's, $75. Okay, let's go ahead and take the tooth out. All right, 2 or 3 years later, hey, I need a filling. Oh, it's another $500. And so over 20, 30 years, they've lost 15 teeth. And so, and it has nothing to do even with care necessarily, even though that can be a component. It's just money. It's purely a financial thing. And so a lot of our patients come in, and this is not a deal where it's like, I'm trying to patch something. This is a deal where this is a comprehensive thing. And unfortunately, people that usually need a ton of the work. So if you have a lot of financial resources, you typically don't need a ton of dental work, because you have the money as you do routine care and maintenance to pay for the oil change, right?
Yeah.
And so your car drives. And so, but if you don't have money, your car 5 years later is running the same oil. There's nothing that drives it, and your engine blows up. And so, the patients that I see typically are the ones that need most the democratization, because they just don't have the income. So that's probably the thing that hit me hardest coming out of dental school is people that had money needed 2 to 3 things. Occasionally you have people that need a lot, and then the people that come in, you'd be like, oh man, you need this and this and this and this and this. And they'd be like, I have $11. And you'd be like, okay. So there's such a disparity on need versus ability that you really, and I was like, this isn't fun. Like, I'm just telling people every day, you need $40,000 worth of treatment, and they don't. That's not even. They're hopeless. They go, I don't know, man. What are your resources? None. There's, you get maybe a free clinic that can pull a tooth, but like to actually have teeth again or get built back is impossible. So that really made dentistry initially to me such a stressful thing, because it's like, well, I can fix a lot of people's teeth that have money. The stuff I like to do is big, but the people I'm fixing are people that have a lot of money. And that's fine. I like fixing people, people that have a lot of money. I need teeth too, right?
Yeah.
So, but I also, and then I was like, oh, this technology. Okay, cool. Now I can do this at half the price, or, or whatever. Or I can be much more charitable and hey, I'm going to help this patient out. And it's not going to be as big a hit to me as it would have been 10 years ago. Yeah. And so what I'm encouraging dentists to see is you now have the ability to be a little more charitable with your dentistry, because you're not going to get hammered like you might have in the past. So, that's been really cool, and it's really totally changed the dynamic of the dentistry we can do. So,
well, since you're kind of brushing up on it, I know that you have a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, Restore Dental is a nonprofit here in the Huntsville area. My wife runs it. She makes very clear that she runs it. She does an excellent job. She's executive director. The main goal is, let's say a patient comes in, is to treat that population. Patients with large needs and no resources, or limited resources. So let's say you have even $3,000 or something, which is a good pile of money, right? But if you go to a normal office, they tell you need $60,000 worth of work. It doesn't matter. Like $3,000 gets you nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, realistically, it doesn't. And you don't have dental insurance. You don't have grandma that's, that can help you out or whatever.
Right.
So now the gym will have patients come in that are in pain for 15 years. And because every tooth in their mouth has an infection. And so you go, okay, well, you can go, well, why didn't you get your teeth out? Well, you had the money to take teeth out. They didn't. And so they're sitting there hurting and they just go, I'm just used to it. Are you hurting? I guess. This is just the world I live in, so, and so what happens is if we identify patients, we kind of go through income verification to make sure that they have need that are there. And then basically what the nonprofit does is it figures out what they need and then it coordinates with dentists to kind of, hey, would you do this dentistry for significantly less? They're trying to. So the problem is that there's two extremes in dentistry right now, which is dentists doing everything for full cost in a high fee, like a fee for service, big expensive, or a free clinic. And so, hey, I need you, dentist, to donate your time on a Friday and come and do extremely basic work. And there's a big that fills a gap, and that's useful. I'm not saying that's not helpful, but there's just a massive population that needs massive work, and there's sustainability of like, hey, Dr. Bill, can you come in every Friday? It's really hard, like, because they have to get up their day, they have to do whatever. So that's a hard model. So what we're trying to do instead is to say, hey, if we raise some money, could you do this? You're not going to make any money off of this, but could you do this? We're going to pay you some to offset, or you don't bleed out on this day. This patient comes in, you're not going to look at the schedule and be like, oh gosh. So it's kind of covering some basic costs for them. And that way, so the nonprofit raises money to help pay a little bit to the dentist to make sure, and then it has this network of dentists that says, hey, we've already identified what they need. You just got to provide it. You're willing to provide it at a significantly reduced cost. It's kind of close to break even or probably less than break even. And so it's just trying to create a more sustainable model where people can get bigger dentistry. And so patients typically come into our clinic. Our role with Restore, so Transcend, which is our private clinic, our role with the nonprofit is we will screen those patients for free and identify their needs. And so then we put them to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit then goes, okay, we have XYZ funds, we have XYZ patients, let's get this person in the right place. So it's kind of it's a different way of doing it, but I've worked with clinics that are more free clinic type basis, and they're wonderful, but they just don't hit this population. So we're just trying to hit a different population of people than most dental nonprofits are aimed at. So
that's I like that. So one of the things I actually think about a lot too with artificial intelligence is about sort of the socioeconomic disparity and access to the technology, because I think that kind of aligns with what you're saying too. And I don't know right now if there's, outside of like people being able to use it on their cell phone, and those are kind of limited interactions, if there would be like an opportunity to say, hey, how can we get these artificial intelligence technologies to help people, like say, with their resume, or help them with their finances, or help them with, like their life goals, things like that, to help them be more like a life coach or like a mentor, right? And in the same way that you're doing with dentistry, try to positively affect their lives, to give them the tools that maybe they don't have because of their socioeconomic status. So.
Yeah, that's one thing that's interesting. So not only in dentistry, we hire a lot of people, right? And so and we hire people generally, like assistants typically have a high school education. You don't necessarily need a college degree for this. And so one thing I love about AI that I use it for is my product that I can create, even if it's something big, let's say a resume, is infinitely better, even if I'm not that good at doing it.
Yes.
And so we get resumes from people applying for a job, and unfortunately you misspell words, it looks like garbage. You go, hey, this is probably not, and that's not really fair, probably realistically, but it's just naturally you have a tendency to dismiss that person. And if you could just literally be like, hey, listen, you're going to throw this into ChatGPT and say, make this look good, and it's going to say, don't use bootylicious@gmail.com, and also spell these words correctly, then like, legitimately that person now goes from not being able to get XYZ job to potentially getting an interview. And so that's funny you say that because we've run it like we go through a ton of resumes, and if it's misspelled, like that's just one of our screeners. Like, if you can, did you put in the effort to generate a resume that's
did you proofread it?
yeah,
right?
did you read that?
Did you spend time on it?
Yeah, and so it's kind of, you know, you can either spend an hour or two, and that's not a skill set everybody has. It's not like I'm not really that good at that kind of stuff. I give it to my wife. Like if I really want something to turn out before AI, I had her do it, and now I just have the computer do it. But like,
it's helping her workload.
Yeah, that's definitely lowered her deal. And I have a lot of sympathy for that because that's not really my skills. Like I do a terrible job at like, or that's not my natural skill to like writing and to do really polished, formal writing stuff. And so that's what I use it a lot for in my work too. Is like I can now write an email and spell it correctly all the way through. You know, like, that's a basic point, but yeah.
People think I'm a functioning human being.
Yeah. When this guy started, my partner at work is like, you just have one continuous sentence. You just are like, it's just like one stream of thought in an email. And I was like, you have paid breaks and paragraphs and all kinds of
It's
stuff.
digestible now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's interesting. I would be very curious. The access to you know, and realistically having a conversation about AI right now is a privileged conversation.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, if you're trying to pay bills and you're trying to get a job and you're trying to get your kid, you ain't worried about AI right now, right? I mean, that's just not your world that you're, and there's probably a lot that AI can do, but that's just not you know, I wonder what I can use this very advanced technology for to effectively synthesize a better, more efficient life. It's just not right now. And I would love if that was. I would love to see that in kind of lower economic, socioeconomic arenas. I'm sure there's a ton of application for it, but I just haven't. I don't know how it's being utilized really.
Well, I haven't heard anything. Let me say that. But like you said, this is you know, this conversation is very much geared towards like higher status people because a lot of the actual chatter is like in academia or it may be in like highly paid tech industry. And there's not a lot of things that you hear that are like, with the exception of, I did actually hear one recently that was, I think it's either Google or GPT is offering free subscriptions to transitioning retirees from the military.
Oh wow!
For a certain period of time, right, to help them move their career from a DoD service, to you know the civilian private industry. Because that is something that like you know people have trouble transitioning.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's still not you know like some of the things that I've seen churches do where they provide like financial coaching and things like that.
Sure.
I think even with like the nonprofits that provide those services or the churches that provide those services, maybe there could be some things that are geared towards that. That's like, hey, here's an AI toolkit that you guys can use and you can also give to them and they can use it to be able to coach themselves through how do I get this job? How do I get, you know, my finances in order? Because, like, to be honest, I grew up poor, and a lot of people think like you should get a financial advisor when you get like a lot of money because like you have so much money you don't know how to manage all of it, right? It is much harder to manage your finances when you have no money because then you have to actually make the decisions of what are some of the things that I actually need that I have to give up because I don't have enough money to pay for them. So having that like a financial advisor to help them navigate some of those things, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, even just, I mean, this is a basic example, but hey, what are just the basic general needs that I should account for and take care of? Okay, I'm going to give you all of my bills and I want you to generate a consistent budget so that I can see my monthly spend. I mean, that would be very basic, but like a very easy application because I find AI to be very helpful to crunch something that is difficult and make it bite-sized. And so I use it for that a lot. And I don't use it a ton, like I don't use it as its most advanced applications, right? It to me helps me process a lot. That used to be like, oh man, it's kind of overwhelming to think through a lot of this. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just start a conversation with AI and be like, hey, I'm just trying to figure something out here. Give me some ballpark. What should I even be thinking about? You know,
Where do I start?
Where do I even start with this? And how do I, that could be a ton of use, but of course you have to have the technology, have access to the technology.
That's
have
right.
a fighting chance of knowing how to even use it. I can sit around and play with it at work, and it's not a crucial thing to my life success, or you know what I'm saying? So that's the luxury part of it. And I'd love to see, I'm sure there's a ton of application. I just don't know. I'm sure it's being done, but I'd love to see more of that. I mean, a lot of it's industry driven
Right.
I mean, they see the potential of it, but I'm sure it could be used in nonprofit sectors and helping people a lot.
Yeah, a lot of it's super high cost right now too. So there's a little bit more democratization in its own industry that it has to do. So, but I wanted to pivot back towards dentistry, and I actually wanted to ask you more of a business side question. So one of the things that at least my company concentrates on now isn't anything that's like specific to one industry. It's more stuff that's like the effort you have to put into running a business, or the administrative or bureaucracy that is over top of the thing that you actually want to do. And that's kind of, we haven't like listed it as a slogan, but like one of our secret slogans is we are trying to help businesses do the stuff that they want to do and like let the AI handle the bureaucracy, right? Like it, so in your industry, the only things I can think of as an example, and this is because I know someone who is one of the people who's up front for a dentist's office that's like handling all the paperwork.
Yeah.
And is essentially like, like checking in patients and handling their insurance and looking things up in a system, and then, getting the schedule set and making sure that they show up, or that they're on time, or be able to schedule them. Those are kind of the applications that I see. Are there any other applications for like the business running part that you think might be pretty helpful?
Yeah, like a million. I mean, so we don't necessarily at our clinic do a ton of insurance, but insurance is the natural progression of like go check what their available resources are. They could know prior authorization of what they need pretty much automatically. The A lot of just like stuff that's just repetitive. We need to send out anytime we have a new patient, we need to send out reminders about the appointment. If they miss an appointment, we're going to automate or have a generation of, hey, we missed you, da, da, da. So there's a lot of energy spent there that a lot of companies are trying to kind of fine tune. As running the business, we use it all the time because we're dentists and not business people. And so we'll be like, hey, how do you run a business? And it's because you run into like HR stuff that you've never encountered. So just like, hey, I'm not sure what's the Alabama law related to part-time or full-time employees. And like, so we use it a lot to, not necessarily a replacement for an attorney, but just to kind of start the conversation about what we should do here. We use it a lot for, hey, we have consent forms we want to analyze to just kind of see if there's anything we use it for, we use it all the time for that for just business administration stuff because we're not business administrators. We're dentists and crappy business administrators. And so, it really helps us, as before, like, you'd be like, okay, we need to solve this problem. What do you know about it? Nothing. What do I know about it? Nothing. So let's start Googling it. Let's go over and start calling people. We were trying to get set up with the VA to do some dentistry with them. And we can use ChatGPT. Hey, we're interested in the VA. What's the general process to get set up as a registered provider for them? And it gives us a roadmap. Now, it might not be perfect, but it's like 90%. You said, like, first pass. This is a great first pass. Like we have some really good starting points. We use it for that kind of stuff all the time. As far as like day-to-day stuff, the thing that I think, so our world is very checklist and systems based. Like, so it's like you have surgery, these things need to be set up for it. They need to be set up in this order. then you have to, during the surgery, there's checklists and systems for that. And I'm certain there's ways to have that systematized aspect be brought in so that, hey, did we make sure the surgery was set up correctly and all the components were there? And oh my gosh, inventory and ordering is also another huge component. Like AI automated ordering based on your past purchasing history, like that would be a very easy. Hey, you order gauze every other week. Why in the world? Keep checking. It's gonna not be there. Like when or just someone can scan through and put in, and then it's automatically order. Like there are so many things that we do that literally take someone like we have to spend hours generating a system. What we used to do, we do it more with AI now, but someone has to think through a system. What are the core issues? What are the system that we need to put in? They're going to have to sit for hours to generate a daggone checklist or system. Then they're going to have to follow up and train and automate that to some extent and get someone in charge of that. And so much of that could be definitely AI run. It's just, so I see the stuff, there's so much that's just repetitive habit. And we have people doing it. Of course, people are wonderful, but they're also challenged. Like repetitive is not really human beings' best strength, realistically.
Right.
Really,
Yeah.
that's it's just not what we do super great. We're inattentive by nature for the most part.
Not interested in it after about the third time.
Yeah, we get kind of over it, and so having systems in place that are like every time a patient comes, they're going to check in, they're going to do this, they're going to give their license and their insurance card, and then that's going to automate the system. We're going to automatically check what the benefits. Like you said, I mean, I can think of 10 different systems in our. We have when a patient gets anything done, we have to communicate to the people that build the teeth what needs to happen. They could auto-generate a timeline. It could auto-generate what steps need to happen by what date and put it on the calendar. I mean, literally anything you can think of, we could use that. We're too dumb to know how to realistically, we incorporate it in a very basic sense, but we don't know enough about the technology and what it can.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing that interests me now about AI is I don't know what it can do.
Yeah.
And so I use it for things that are very basic functionality that are still super helpful to me, but I just don't even know what's possible. And occasionally I'll hear people that'll talk and they'll be like, yeah, you can just do this with it. I'm like, that's awesome. I just had no idea that even in the realm of what could happen.
That's interesting because maybe that's one of the bigger hurdles for, I guess, my industry is it's not necessarily like education. It's just that there's no way that we can possibly list down the things that it can do. It's like
it's a productive tool.
Yeah, so the
not hammered.
Huge. Yeah.
A lot.
But also like a lot of people using large language models, you also can't ask it because it doesn't know itself what it can do. Like it'll just tell you, be like, yeah, I can drive a car, sure, that's fine. It's like get in, and you're like, so I don't know. I don't know how to jump that hurdle. I guess maybe having a podcast. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I do tend to when I have like introductory meetings with businesses. A lot of the things I tend to show them, they're like, wow, like I didn't know it could do that. And I'm like, to me, it seems like, oh, no, this is the basic stuff. I haven't gotten to the wax.
We haven't even got the cool stuff yet. This is the important part of my PowerPoint.
So that there is obviously like some kind of disconnect. And I don't know how to get around that. So.
Well, I know for us, what would be helpful, let's say we're trying to integrate a lot of stuff. What we would do is we go, these are our pain points.
Yeah.
We would not even think about AI. We would just say,
you don't like doing this.
Yeah, I hate this. I hate this. We have problems with this. And then someone that knows the tool then goes, oh, yeah, you have this pain point. This is a great application of a tool that can address this pain point. Because asking me, you can say, hey, what do you think you can use AI for in your business?
Yeah.
And I go, well, I don't know. Right now I use it to fix my emails. I do more than that, but my tool, what I know exists in my tool belt for AI is 3-4 things. I don't know. And so what I can do is tell you what drives me insane about my business.
Yeah.
And then list out why it drives me crazy. And then someone that knows the technology goes, oh, yeah. these are the 10 different ways that I can make it easier tomorrow.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and so, and this is one that's worth it. This one's probably not, you know, or whatever. And so I would think that would be a way to do it. But the odds that you train me to know all the applications of AI is 0%.
Yeah.
But the odds that I can communicate to you what my core issues are for my specific business are high. So.
Well, you know, it's funny because I think what you just described was exactly what I try to do in consultation. Like anytime I go in with a business, because I will, the biggest thing I do when I come in is like I don't show up with like you know, hey, here's my brochure. Yeah, they got these products. Like, you know, pick which one. Like, do you want it in purple or whatever? It's a lot of what I end up talking to people about is just like, hey, like, what do you do on a day to day? Like, what does your workflow look like? And you know, I see that you stopped doing this one thing and had to walk over there to do another thing. Is there a way that I can make it where you don't have to do that, right? You can just keep doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
And trying to identify those points. But there's also like I think sometimes when I have those consultations, there's sometimes that people are like they're kind of skeptical, especially like even like allowing me to come in and have that consultation because there's a lot of AI companies out there that are basically saying like, buy this thing. It's gonna solve world hunger. It's gonna make you're not even gonna have to go to work, right? Like it'll run itself or whatever. And I just don't, you know, I think that makes people kind of skittish.
Yeah, sure.
And I wish it wasn't that way. I wish people would just call me and they'd be like, hey, just come and look and see what you can get rid of. And I'll be like, perfect, right?
Yeah.
And in that way, I can be like the person you call to like help you clean out your house, right?
Yeah.
It's like, come organize my closets. Like, I can do that. Yeah, let's go look.
Start there.
Yeah.
We'll cure world hunger.
Well, dude, we'll get to world hunger eventually. It is on the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess beyond that, I don't really have very much else to ask you. Is there anything else that you maybe thought you might like to talk about that's AI related or that you didn't get to, or any other subjects you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I guess my question, you know, I thought your question was really interesting about what core thing do you wish you could solve, basically. Two questions I have. One is what do you see AI in like a business, a typical business, just what do you see as just kind of a bread and butter application of AI that is underutilized or that for most businesses would really have some bang for buck? So that'd be question one I'd have.
So I would think honestly it's that application that we were talking about with like a resume. Resume is a really good example of like something everybody can relate to in building. But the reality is that the same thing that you're doing with that resume, you can do with almost any subject of something that has been written down in the past. So one of the things that another example to push that to that I use it for is Bible study. So I may take like a few passages that I'm reading and I could put them in and I could put my thoughts in and then I can ask it about historical context. I can ask it about the different versions of the Bible and how each one of those translates differently. I can ask it about maybe context within different religions that may be parallels. So you can get like a broad perspective because not that it knows more or like is rationalizing or is like more philosophically beyond or anything like that. The thing is that AI is just more well read.
Yeah.
It has read more books than anybody.
Really thoroughly read person.
Yes, it is it's what every well read person aspires to be. Like you've read everything, right? Yeah. So being able to do that even with like business processes, right? Like everybody has to fill out a tax form. Everybody, right? It's not going to give you like perfect tax advice. You shouldn't think like this person is a tax assessor or is like an auditor or is going to be able to do that. But what it can do is it can look at your taxes and it can say, hey, that you should fill it out in this format. Or it can take and give you like a first pass. It's making that first pass and formatting everything correctly. And it does that well because it's well read and because it's infinitely patient, right? It never gets bored of filling out your taxes, right? So that's the application I think that a lot of businesses are missing. The second part of it would be, I think, more specifically because a lot of businesses are public facing and it's about like getting that interaction with the customer. If we could concentrate more with like private industry and private businesses on sort of tuning that interaction
Mhm.
for a business so that the business has its own personalized AI that can interact with the customers, and customers are used to that.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you an example that doesn't exist today, but when you go, I shop at Publix.
Mhm.
One of the reasons I shop at Publix is because their employees are all very friendly.
Mhm.
They're all very patient, and every single one of them will stop what they're doing and go out of their way to help you find whatever it is that you want. Right. And I've even been told while I was there when they didn't have what I want, and I was totally fine with that,
Yeah.
that they were like, hey, we'll order it. Just come back next week.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
They will get it for you.
Yeah.
I don't see why the future couldn't be that artificial intelligence is also providing that
Mhm.
that support, right? If you have a store that's full of customers and things like that, having that support there is useful. Plus, there's this barrier in a lot of stores. Like, say you go to a retail store that sells pants or something, like a high-end pants store.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's like a barrier to talking to a salesperson because you think they're going to try to sell you pants.
Yeah.
Right. AI is not going to try to sell you pants.
Yeah.
It could care less if you buy the pants.
Let's
it's just
make a very aggressive AI.
that's aggressive salesman. Yeah, and every 5 seconds, can I help you?
Yeah.
Can I help you find something?
Yeah.
But it's not going to do that. It's going to inform you about their product, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to stick to their branding about it too. And I think there's an application there. So
It's interesting you brought up something kind of like a lot of my staff spends a lot of time doing things that have to be done, but don't necessarily like help patient outcomes or help patients feel welcome and loved. Like scanning in a document it's not human interaction that makes them feel cared for, right? And so
Yeah.
I would love for all the random stuff that just has to happen I'd rather have my staff talking with my patients and
yes.
like having a personal relationship but they can't because they're having to call and talk to insurance or they're having to scan in documents or they're having to follow up, so there's a lot of I actually think human interaction in a business, like the way you're saying is kind of interesting because it's kind of saying we can use AI to kind of be a front facing thing. And I actually kind of see it as like AI is the back office.
Yeah.
And now my people are freed up to be human to humans. And so I like, so sometimes I'm like, hey, can you call and talk to this patient and do whatever, and they call and have a good conversation. That patient has a very nice, positive interaction. But if they have 40 other things they have to do that are all just random widgets of stuff, then we just don't have bandwidth to do that.
Right.
Or have to hire an additional person to do that.
All those widgets are distracting you from like the human part of the equation, right? Like from that connection. Yeah, I that's interesting because I think what you kind of identified there, it's not something I've thought about, is that there's kind of like two lanes, right? There's kind of two sides, two kinds of businesses. If I go to a retail store, I don't want the salesman to come and be pushy.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe I want to deal with AI.
No, do they have a size 30 pants or whatever?
Yeah, I'm just looking for size 30 pants. Yeah. But if I go to the dentist or if I go to the doctor, I do want that human connection. Right. Like there are some places where I might want like the AI to be there or like have the doctor using AI or something. But mostly what I want to go there for, right, is I want to go there and know that my doctor knows what it's like to have an ailment and they know what it's like to feel like that and that they can sort of like, sympathize with me on that too. So,
well, and one thing, so my partner got a device that records the conversation and doctor creates a note. So, generates a note off that conversation. So he now has 10 more minutes with that patient because he used to go and have to go and remember and he has a 200 times better note that is very heard every single part of what their conversation was and documented very thoroughly. And so now, like we use AI, I now dictate my notes is the way I do it so I say probably 30 minutes a day. That's time that I can use that I'm not like, oh man, I can't sit here and listen to this patient's telling me about their Christmas break. And I can't do that because if I'm going to get home in time to see my kids, I gotta go nuts, And so to me, that's the freeing component to me is that the stuff that I would rather be doing, which is just kind of building connection, I have time now to do because I'm not doing all this other random stuff that I don't want to be fooling with. So I can also see the other component to it, but that to me, in my business, I would much rather build that connection and authenticity with patients,
Right.
as opposed to like you go to a doctor's office, they're running you through, they don't, like, and it's they gotta do all this stuff, they gotta document, they gotta do coding, they gotta like, there's a whole world of stuff they gotta do, and so realistically, they're like, they got a lot of time in their day. So
Yeah.
of the 8 hours or whatever, you got 2 hours you got to spend on student stuff.
Yeah.
And if you had 30 minutes you had to spend on that, or 10 minutes you had to spend on that, then of course you could use it to make more money, or you could say, I'm going to give my patients another 5 or 10 minutes per appointment to
Provide a
to
better
sit.
quality of service.
Uh-huh. So I like that side of it. My other question, I guess, so my wife Rachel's a bit skeptical of AI, in that, not really in that it, mainly related to people using it and trusting it. Like
Okay.
implicitly. You know,
Yes.
hey, I put this in ChatGPT and or whatever, and it told me this, and so that's right. And
Yeah.
she goes,
Yeah.
you're using it, but you're also not critically thinking. And so and I tell her, well, I'm not using it to ask if I should do brain surgery on people. I'm trying to. And so, how do you navigate that? Where do you appropriately put trust as far as that, and how do you said I want people to trust the system, this AI system. There's also kind of in the AR world, you said kind of a flood of like, I can solve all your problems, and
Yes.
so how do you navigate that with this is a useful tool and you can trust it, but also it's dangerous, or these are the things to be aware of that can be pitfalls?
So I'm navigating that with a few clients right now, and I also have put a lot of thought into that. And I actually had a whole presentation on it at a conference one time. And to what you've asked, to be much more clear, is actually not a question about AI. It's about how do humans learn to trust. And misplaced trust is like a huge thing. It's always been a huge thing, right? People have taken the advice of other human beings as gold when they definitely should not have. I don't think that's any different with what's coming out of AI, because the only difference is that now AI is giving it to you in like a natural language interface, rather than it, being like something you have to interpret. And I think really what's going on is like, yes, artificial intelligence is not perfect. It gives you wrong answers sometimes. But critically, what should have been kicking off in your mind should have been, why do you not have a filter that questions things that come in, right? Like,
well, I think that like the part that to me is interesting about it is, so if I ask Bill what he thinks I should do with my money, Bill, I don't trust Bill that much. Or like, Bill knows some things, but AI presents itself as authoritative by its nature of knowledge. Or it can.
And that it comes from a computer. A lot of stuff we do on the computer, we automatically trust. And maybe we should stop doing that.
Sure.
But keep going.
And so I think that the difference to me is, I do think we've misplaced trust in humans, but we don't necessarily associate humans most of the time as being unerring. Whereas you go, okay, like you earlier were joking, but this literally has read everything on Earth. Like kind of mentality. You go, well, probably knows the answer to this question, right? And so it's interesting. I sometimes will rephrase questions multiple different ways and trying to see if it's still consistently giving me similar answers. So
that's a great
critical thinking, and that's where the critical thinking part of it comes in. But it's just, I think that is going to be, of course, people's natural tendency is to swing to extremes. So it comes out, and everyone's like, this is that's the best thing since sliced bread, and cures everything and is always right. And so you can then go to the other extreme and go, AI's inherently going to be wrong, and and so I think that probably both extremes are wrong. But she brings that up to me, and I'm always curious, just kind of how you navigate that in that arena.
So the actual approach, I didn't actually tell you the approach that I take. The actual approach I take is I tell people who begin using the system, the very first thing I tell them is that you need to get to know it. And I use that phrase specifically because I want them to feel a lot more like they're getting to know a person.
Mhm.
Not that I'm trying to personify it,
Yeah.
but in a lot of ways, it does act like a person. It's right in some ways,
Mhm.
it's good at some things, and it's bad at some things,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So, and you have to get to know what that is. And it's going to be, when you get to know it, typically it's going to be like one of the strangest people that you've ever met. It will be like, it will be able to regurgitate facts from like way back that like, you're like, why do you even know that? But then at the same time, it can't count.
Yeah.
So like you can't trust it to do any kind of math or anything like that. So you kind of have to know that going in, or not really know it going in, but you have to learn that over time by like just messing around with it. And I think maybe that's kind of the trust issue, is that people want to trust first and then use it,
Yeah.
when they should use it and then learn to trust.
Yeah,
right?
so like a normal human interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Develop trust with people over time.
exactly. Yeah. Because there are use cases that I use it for a lot of stuff and for a lot of very technical, heavy stuff. And there are a lot of things that I get into that I learned that, it's just not good at this. Let me just do that part myself.
Yes.
We'll skip over that step in the plan and then we'll move on and let it keep going, right? But you have to learn what those things are. And then once you kind of like, you build I'm going to use this term, but you build a relationship with it where you can begin to understand it. You start to be able to plan your interactions with it in a way, or use your interactions with it in a different way, so that you understand and can like circumvent the problem that it's going to have.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a dumb example, but I think woodworking, where it's like you're trying to cut a piece of wood. There's like 40 different ways to cut that piece of wood, and you can use a tool to do that. But you can go, you can do it. That's really not a good way for this specific thing to do that. And we're using a tool really in a way that's not strong to do. Sure, you might be able to get it to do it. It's probably not going to work as good. That's kind of the way I think about it. My last question is, what cool thing you see AI doing in the next 20 years that you're just like, that you see on the horizon that you're just fascinated, or that you see really changing, either changing a lot or just like, man, that's an incredible way that AI is gonna either change something or just be amazing?
So I don't know that it's like on the horizon with the AI part of the technology as much as it's on the horizon with the manufacturing and the availability of the technology. And that thing is the embodiment of AI in robotics. I think probably, and people have seen things like the Atlas, robot on the, but that's like, you can't afford those unless you're really, really rich or whatever. But there are some that have started to trickle out that are like, their price range is pretty low and you can bring it into your house, and it becomes more personable and it becomes more concrete whenever you're interacting with a physical body. And I think that is really, I'm excited to see how that impact kind of changes people's view on the interaction of artificial intelligence. And I'll take a few steps forward, a couple of years. The one thing I'm really looking forward to is I'm looking forward to going to Publix and walking around, and someone's like, shopping robot that they've sent out to Publix to go buy something is like shopping with me. And the cool part would be like, what kind of features will it have? Will I be able to like stop it and also ask it questions? Like, how are you doing? Hey, how's it going? I don't know who you belong to, but do you know where the canned beans are? What aisle is that on? And it like take me over.
Right? They're robots, right?
Why don't you ask that guy over there, right? Yeah. Or I don't know where the canned beans are. But being able to, like, the way things are going to change, because it won't just be a Publix with like, technology in the future, is that it's going to become prolific, right? It's going to become everywhere. There are already, counties in different states that are, having self-driving cars. There are cities that are using self-driving cars. Providing natural language interfaces to all of those pieces so that you can talk to them. It's just going to be interesting. Like you may not actually have to pull your phone out very much. You may just stop a car and ask it directions while you're on the street, like a little taxi or something. So I want to see like where that goes. Really, that's the interesting stuff. And I don't think it's that far away. mostly because CES, which is a conference for this technology, was this week. And one of the things that one of the NVIDIA actually was showing in their presentation was a training pipeline that they have where they actually use AI with video generation to train robots to do things in the real world. Yeah, it's called Cosmos. They actually unveiled it like a couple of years ago, but they've moved it so far to this point where they're training robots to do multiple things. And it's not just like, how do you drive a car? It's like, how do you cook this dish? How do you cut up an onion?
Yeah.
How do you clean this room? How do you,
Yeah.
it's like a ton of stuff, right? And seeing how that's going to evolve into, these at-home robots that maybe you have that are like, maybe we don't have to have a cleaning service come in.
Yeah.
Sorry for people who are in the cleaning service industry,
Yeah.
but maybe we don't have to have them come in because we have this robot that like helps us do stuff. And as a parent, like I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this and how much I'm kind of sorry that it's not going to be around yet for like when my kids are young and I really need it. Right? Yeah, to get that time back like with my kids. I still think it's important. Let me just caveat that by saying I still think it's important for kids to have chores and to learn responsibility and things. But there are some, having an extra helping hand as a parent is always something that I think is valuable.
Sure.
And it's not something that everybody has. Going back to the socioeconomic status, it would be super valuable in those situations to have that helping hand.
Well, unfortunately, they would be the last person to get it.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm interested. So this is not a dumb example necessarily, but kind of a personal one. So my dad was diabetic, type 1, and stuck himself with a pin 3 times a day to check his blood sugar, and then gave himself a physical shot 5 times a day, basically, whatever. And did a terrible job. Like, didn't, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So then my brother came, so I watched him come along. He had type 1 diabetes, or has, and Bud came along and pump, and so now blood sugar's checking. It wasn't continuous, but
Gotcha.
he's check, and then he has a pump, but it's still really rough. But he's not giving shots all the time. And now unfortunately his son has type 1 diabetes, and he's like 8 or 8-10 range, and now continuous blood sugar monitoring and the pump that's kind of starting to suggest and help. Hey, you need to watch. So like that to me, with a lot of this automation and AI, it's really fascinating with the medical side of the world to be like, you're going to have an external pancreas. I mean, you're essentially going to have usability of this learning to solve this core issue that I've like very personally seen like go from like this was poorly managed and very challenging to the point where an individual almost could not do it and now it's like it'll be nothing, not nothing, but essentially it'll be if you can put these little pods on it'll go for 6 months and you don't even have to think of it, change it out or whatever that looks like. But like, so stuff like that, I think is really, on the medical side, I think a lot about that kind of stuff. And that's a very specific example that I thought about that I think that's not that far. Like we're not far from it happening. My last question is one thing and I didn't even know I did ask all these AI questions, but I think this is one that I hear a lot with AI, which is how do you balance or what conversation do you have, of course, fear of AI as far as job replacement, of course, any disruptive technology has. What are your thoughts on that, or how do you think what do you think is the way to think about that?
Well, I don't think that there's one way. And I say that because I don't think that there's like probably a common answer. I will say that as far as addressing the fear, the first jobs that are probably going to go for being replaced by AI, or let's not say replaced, let's say displaced, will be the jobs where the person in that position is afraid to use AI to make their job more efficient.
Okay.
Where they're rejecting it.
Yeah.
And the reason is because that's not going to happen at every company. And then you're going to end up with companies that are much more efficient than other companies because their employees are integrating it and using AI. So I don't think we should be afraid to use it at work. I think or even that it's going to replace our jobs. And I think we can take if we look a lot more closely, like under a microscope, at what happened during the Industrial Revolution with textile mills. is that everyone thought the exact same thing with the textile mill. They thought no one is going to be making shirts. There will be, they're just going to be free. Like shirts are going to be free. Well, the reality is that the textile mill democratized the shirt. Before the textile mill, the way that you had a shirt was either you made it out of material that you found, or you recycled, or you inherited.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, you might inherit clothing from like your father or your uncles or your cousins or something like that. And so people couldn't afford like the lavish, fashionable clothing that they have today. They couldn't afford to own more than like one or two shirts, right? But if you pick, like, run out here and throw a rock, right? And if that person will go let you look in their closet, I guarantee you that whatever size their closet is, it's going to be full, right? They have bought all of this stuff, most of which they probably don't wear.
Yeah.
And it's because it's become that cheap. They've actually purchased it, and it's a profitable industry still.
Yeah.
So I think that the same thing will happen with artificial intelligence, with all of these other industries. Things will get democratized. And because of that, I think the thing people should be more concerned about is not that their job is going to go away, but that they should continue to learn and learn about artificial intelligence, because it's going to touch every single job in every single market. And putting that off is kind of putting you behind. So learning more about what it can do in your industry and what it's already doing in your industry, a lot like we're doing right now, I think is key for people to maintain their importance. I don't think anybody should actually be, I'm gonna say, scared of losing their job. They should be more aware of the opportunity that it's providing them to transition to a new role.
Yeah.
Because it's like a multiplying factor in a lot of cases. There are some things that we're probably going to stop doing. I will say that.
Yeah, sure.
But like the question I try to open with is, I would like for those things to be the things that we actually don't want to do anyway, right? And for me, that is always like the bureaucratic stuff. That's keeping me from doing the stuff that I love to do. Like, I became an engineer because I loved building stuff and like tearing stuff apart, figuring out how it worked, and like applying all of these mathematical skills to that design. And the thing I do the most at this point is justify my ability to break things down by building a PowerPoint, going to meetings, and presenting to executives about how I took this thing down. We could do this, right? I don't want to do that anymore. I would love for AI to take over that whole part, to be like, hey, here, I give it an idea, and I'm like, we need to do this. And it goes, I'll be back in 5 days. I'm going to go present to the executives, and I'll tell you how much money we got.
Yeah.
I would love for that to happen.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just not what's happening today. And I think there are cases like that in all of the other industries where there's some kind of overhead to the fact that you want to do dentistry.
Yeah, sure.
But part of what you have to do to survive as a dentist is you've got to run a business.
Yeah.
So having it to run, help you run that business, help you kind of fill in the gaps for the things that you can't do, or you're not very good at, and allow you to do the thing that you are good at, right? I have had a conversation with, and I mentioned this before, but I have had a conversation with the fire department. And one of the things I would love for our firefighters to be able to do, because they're one of the, especially as city employees, they're one of the people that's hit with bureaucracy the most. A lot of the city employees are. Let's take the bureaucracy out. Let's let AI handle all the paperwork and, like the making of schedules and the writing down of reports and things like that. And let firefighters do the thing that they should be doing, which is connecting to people who are in stressful situations, trying to calm them down and make sure that they know that they're going to have a support network. And most importantly, put out fires, right? Like fight the fires, right? Like, let's free them up to do that. And I think AI can very much help in those regions. So
cool. One thing you brought up last thing, I guess, is that I think it's interesting I hadn't thought about is, with the nonprofit world, so much of it is grant writing.
Yes.
And so like identification, it's all the same. Like it's there, but it's like identifying what grants apply, and then like filling out 95% of the grant, and then like you can apply to 100 times more, do just as good a job. And so like literally your ability to help a nonprofit raise funds by doing that. That's one of the biggest issues in nonprofits is like there's people that have this compassionate heart, but they are not these grant writers.
Yeah.
And so we meet with a lot of different companies, or not companies, but nonprofits, and they'll be like the sweetest people on earth, but they're just not so organized or not whatever. That's just not their strength. That's why they love helping people. Like,
yes.
And so, like, being able to, like, hey, here are 14 grants that make sense for your nonprofit. I already have all your information and stats. I've already filled out 80% of this. You got to sign your name on and write. I've already started a rough draft of your story and what you do.
Yeah.
And like, so that, anyway, that just, as you were talking, you were talking about getting rid of that. I was like, that would be a really interesting application. Yes, but
funny enough, that is an application that I use on the for-profit side to apply for proposals, right? People put out proposals. It's the exact same thing. Like, what are you going to do for this money?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? Tell me your story.
Mine's XYZ.
That's exactly, Here's 15 pages. Make sure you check all the boxes and, you tell us exactly.
It's formulaic, it's repetitive, it's the same information, but doing it manually is very super intensive.
Yeah, and hard to pay attention to, too.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not very interesting.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so I totally agree with that application.
So.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so I think we can close it here. I'd really like to thank you for coming in.
Of course, yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You've been listening to The Front Room. The Front Room is written, recorded, and produced by me, Nathan Rigoni. If you'd like to know more about what our company does and what it could possibly do for you, you can reach us at nathan.rigoni@phronesis-analytics.com. We'd like to thank you for listening and have a good day.